"Come on," Azar said. "Let's do it." But I told him to be patient. Waiting was the trick. So we went to the movies. Barbarella again. The 8th straight night. A lousy movie, I thought, but it kept Azar occupied. He was crazy about Jane Fonda. "Sweet Janie," he kept saying. "Sweet Janie boosts a man's morale." Then with his hand he showed me which part of his moral got boosted. It was an old joke. Everything was old. The movie, the heat, the booze, the war. I fell asleep during the second reel. A hot, angry sleep. And 40 minutes later I woke up to a sore ass and a foul temper. It wasn't yet midnight. We hiked over to the EM Club and worked our way through a six-pack. Mitchell Sanders was there at another table, but he pretended not to see me. Around closing time, I nodded to Azar. "Well, goody gumdrop," he said. We went over to my hooch, picked up our gear, and then moved through the night down to the wire. I felt like a soldier again, back in the bush, it seemed. We observed good field discipline, not talking, keeping to the shadows, and joining in with the darkness. When we came up on Bunker 6, Azar lifted his thumb and peeled away from me and began circling to the south. Old times, I thought, a kind of thrill, a kind of dread. Quietly, I shouldered my gear and crossed over to a heap of boulders that overlooked Jorgensen's position. I was directly behind him. 32 meters away, exactly, even in the heavy darkness, no moon yet, I could make out the kid's silhouette. A helmet, a pair of shoulders, a rifle barrel. His back was to me. He gazed out at the wire and at the paddies beyond, where the danger was. I knelt down and took out 10 flares and unscrewed the caps and lined them up in front of me, and then checked my wristwatch. Still 5 minutes to go. Edging over to my left, I groped for the ropes I'd set up that afternoon. I found them, tested the tension, and checked the time again. 4 minutes. There was a light feeling in my head, fluttery and taut at the same time. I remembered it from the boonies. Giddiness and doubt and awe. All these things and a million more. You wonder if you're dreaming. It's like you're in a movie. There's a camera on you, so you begin acting. You're somebody else. You think of all the films you've seen, Audie Murphy and Gary Cooper and the Cisco Kid, all those heroes, and you can't help falling back on them as models of proper comportment. On ambush, curled in the dark, you fight for control. Not too much fidgeting. You rearrange your posture. You try for a grin. You measure out your breathing. Eyes open. Be alert. Old imperatives, old movies. It all swirls together. Clichés mixing with your own emotions, and in the end, you can't tell one from the other. There was that coldness inside me. I wasn't myself. I felt hollow and dangerous. I took a breath, fingered the first rope, and gave it a sharp little jerk. Instantly there was a clatter outside the wire. I expected the noise. I was even tensed for it. But still, my heart took a hop. Now, I thought. Now it starts. Eight ropes altogether. I had 4. Azar had 4. Each rope was hooked up to a homemade noisemaker out in front of Jorgensen's bunker. 8 ammo cans filled with rifle cartridges. Simple devices, but they worked. I waited a moment, and then, very gently, I gave all 4 of my ropes a little tug. Delicate, nothing loud. If you weren't listening hard, you might have missed it. But Jorgensen was listening. At the first low rattle, his silhouette seemed to freeze. Another rattle, Azar this time. We kept at it for 10 minutes, staggering the rhythm. Noise, silence, noise. Gradually building the tension. Squinting down at Jorgensen's position, I felt a swell of immense power. It was a feeling the VC must have, like a puppeteer. Yank on the ropes, watch the silly wooden soldier jump and twitch. It made me smile. One by one, in sequence, I tugged on each of the ropes, and the sounds came flowing back at me with a soft, indefinite formlessness. A rattlesnake, maybe, or the creak of a trap door, or footsteps in the attic, whatever you made of it. In a way, I wanted to stop myself. It was cruel, I knew that, but right and wrong were somewhere else. This was the spirit world. I heard myself laugh. And then presently, I came unattached from the natural world. I let the hinges go. Eyes closed, I seemed to rise up out of my own body and float through the dark down to Jorgensen's position. I was invisible. I had no shape, no substance. I weighed less than nothing. I just drifted. It was imagination, of course, but for a long while I hovered there over Bobby Jorgensen's bunker. As if through dark glass I could see him, lying flat in his circle of sandbags, silent and scared, listening, rubbing his eyes, telling himself it was all a trick of the dark, muscles tight, ears tight. I could see it. Now, at this instant, he'd glance up at the sky, hoping for a moon or a few stars, but no moon. No stars. He'd start talking to himself. He'd try to bring the night into focus, willing coherence. But the effort would only cause distortions. Out beyond the wire, the paddies would seem to swirl and sway. The trees would take human form. Clumps of grass would glide through the night like sappers. Funhouse country, trick mirrors and curvatures and pop-up monsters. "Take it easy," he'd murmur. "Easy, easy, easy." But it wouldn't get any easier. I could actually see it. I was down there with him, inside him. I was part of the night. I was the land itself. Everything, everywhere. The fireflies and paddies, the moon, the midnight rustlings, the cool phosphorescent shimmer of evil. I was atrocity. I was jungle fire, jungle drums. I was the blind stare in the eyes of all those poor dead dumbfuck ex-pals of mine. All the pale young corpses, Lee Strunk and Kiowa and Kurt Lemon. I was the beast on their lips. I was Nam, the horror, the war.
This ends Disc 5.
"Creepy," Azar said. "Wet pants and goosebumps." He held a beer out to me, but I shook my head. We sat in the dim light of my hooch, boots off, listening to Mary Hopkins on my tape deck. "What next?" "Wait," I said. "Sure, I mean, shut up and listen." That high, elegant voice. Someday, when the war was over, I'd go to London and ask Mary Hopkin to marry me. That's another thing Nam does to you. It turns you sentimental. It makes you want to hook up with girls like Mary Hopkin. You learn finally that she'll die, and so you try to hang on to your own life, that gentle, naive kid you used to be. But then after a while, the sentiment takes over, and the sadness. Because you know for a fact that you can't ever bring any of it back again. You just can't. "Those were the days," she sang. Azar switched off the tape. "Shit, man," he said. "Don't you got music?" And now, finally, the moon was out. We slipped back to our positions and went to work again with the ropes, louder now, more insistent. Starlight sparkled in the barbed wire, and there were curious reflections and layerings of shadow, and the big white moon added resonance. There was no wind. The night was absolute. Slowly, we dragged the ammo cans closer to Bobby Jorgensen's bunker, and this, plus the moon, gave a sense of approaching peril, the slow belly-down crawl of evil. At 0300 hours, Azar set off the first trip flare. There was a light popping noise, then a sizzle out in front of Bunker 6. The night seemed to snap itself in half. The white flare burned 10 paces from the bunker. I fired off 3 more flares, and it was instant daylight. Then Jorgensen moved. He made a short, low cry. Not even a cry, really, just a short, lung-and-throat bark. And there was a blurred sequence as he lunged sideways and rolled toward a heap of sandbags and crouched there and hugged his rifle and waited. "There," I whispered. "Now you know." I could read his mind. I was there with him. Together we understood what terror was. You're not human anymore. You're a shadow. You slip out of your own skin like molting, shedding your own history and your own future, leaving behind everything you ever were or wanted or believed in. You know you're about to die, and it's not a movie, and you aren't a hero, and all you can do is whimper and wait. This, now, was something we shared. I felt close to him. It wasn't compassion, just closeness. His silhouette was framed like a cardboard cutout against the burning flares.